Shatter, he goes
around
for
the corner, not gonna be able to find anything though. The shield is up now. Super's gonna have one of his own, but Sinatra's still holding onto the grab. Answering grab coming through from Vancouver, locks him in the sound barrier. Sound
That's a huge
gonna be the
shatter.
bomb coming in from John. Oh my God, a kill! He does it again! We saw it from him yesterday to get the victory over the Chargers.
Bumper, the main tank for the Vancouver Titans and formerly Runaway, is an anomaly of a player. I have never seen before top-level analysts so split on whether a player is elite or getting carried. I'm not kidding. You may think because the Titans are undefeated and had a spectacular performance in the grand finals of Stage 1 that everyone was in agreement that all these players are elite. So let's try to figure this out by studying the grand final. Is Bumper getting carried by his teammates, or perhaps have the Vancouver Titans stumbled into the best possible playstyle of Overwatch, and in truth, they get the last laugh? This hyper-risky playstyle has been working out for them as they clutch even the closest of series and are still undefeated. Let me show you a few examples of both sides of this. In the grand final, the Shock actually did an amazing job of disrupting Bumper whenever possible. All of their resources went into him, all the crowd control, but he still found himself coming up big in crazy moments. Look at this grav. Bumper's attempting to close the distance onto the grav so he can do the follow-up damage past the shield or set up a pin, but he knows Super is close to a shatter, so he's playing a bit defensively, then tries to sneak in a pin at the last second. Moth and Rascal hit him with the double boop. He goes flying off into the corner, which should spell doom. The grav's ending. Bumper's way out of position, off onto his own. The Shock swarm him to punish, but they get destroyed by his Earth Shatter, turning the fight on its head completely. Went from a situation that the Shock were looking to stabilize and set up their own play, but Bumper, finding himself in some wacky position, turned the fight on its head. To me, that's Bumper in a nutshell, where he continuously finds himself in over-eager, outrageous positions, and a big percentage of the time it works out for him. Now, the other end of this spectrum is frankly, a lot of times, Bumper seems to be lacking core competencies that high-level main tanks have. Over-ambitious pins, failing to just simply manage his shield and his personal health while the resources are coming back to him. Like, for example, there's some simple management decisions that a top-level tank shouldn't really struggle with. For example, let's look at these two fights on Ilios, a map that they lost. An important job of the main tank is keeping track of the resources you have to go aggressive. In the GOATS meta, that's Zarya Projected Barrier and Brigitte Armor Pack. The two of those effectively give you an extra life. In between that time, you want to be managing your shield to have it take damage instead of your face. But in this instance, despite the projected barrier getting used and armor pack being on cooldown, Bumper still gets too greedy for damage. Instead of retreating back, him being this far forward gets him surrounded. But okay, that's fine. In isolation, that's one mistake. It happens to every Reinhardt in the game. But the point I want to make is that this doesn't frequently happen to any other tank. Super wasn't getting caught out and dying like this. In comparison, he played a much cleaner game, but that's the team that lost, which is what makes this so crazy. The very next team fight shows this as well, where they do a good job turning the fight around, killing the enemy Reinhardt, and the number one rule after you have a Rein and they don't, as a man advantage, all your Rein has to do is hold up his shield. But here, he allows himself to get flanked by the Diva, tunnel visioning on the target focus call in front of him, rather than shielding and maintaining his health, just waiting for his damage dealers to finish the fight. Because if you hold the shield, you have effectively infinite health, and if they don't have a shield, well, they eventually die, right? All he has to do is hold his shield right here, but he goes in for swings and allows him to get collapsed on, and this fight comes entirely back. Okay, now let's swing back the other direction, because they won the grand final, right? Despite how many of these little weird mistakes that I can point out, at some point, we can't call a playstyle bad if the team is able to utilize it. Now, I would argue that if Bumper cleaned up some of these plays, well, they wouldn't be going to the full 7 maps against the Shock. They would have closed out the series even sooner. However, I'm of two minds with this kind of thing, because I also can find examples where this risky tendency is a benefit. The Vancouver Titans seem to be able to control the game much more by playing this sloppy overall, being punishable, but also more aggressive. I think it is the best way to at least play the Stage 1 patch of Overwatch, as although it's punishable, it also puts you in a position to win more frequently, or so it would seem. Show you an example. We're going to take a look at two playstyles here. Aggressive versus defensive. Here, Super and the Shock are trying to peel back and sustain. Super largely succeeds in even blocking the big shatter. Only Rascal gets knocked down by this, but the rest of his team stays up. Sound barrier there to save the team. However, it's the discrepancy of what a defensive ult like sound barrier gives you when you're in an aggressive position taking the map versus a defensive one. Because in the next moment, Super gets a massive shatter on the way back, but it doesn't matter because Rascal couldn't be saved because of how much ground the Titans were able to secure. And this is the benefit of spatial control and focus fire. Because remember, the Titans only landed shatter. It's not like there's some big ultimate barrage, dragon strike. There isn't some crazy damage ultimate that's chewing through the sound barrier. It's just the focus fire in the space that they netted themselves by Bumper going super aggro and deep. And the reason why Vancouver can get away with this playstyle so frequently is because Slime and Twilight's defensive ult usage to bail out this aggressive playstyle was always on the ready. Because Slime is wall riding at all times, he's amazing at this, he doesn't get hit by the shatter and is able to land his own sound barrier, saving his team from death. And once the Titans have more of the ground, far more of their members can do damage while having that overshield, as opposed to the Shock, who are all playing defensively when they received theirs. I think you could think of it pretty easily like this. If the enemy's Rhine shield is in your face, and all you can shoot is a Rhine shield, it doesn't matter if you have infinite health, you're not doing any effective damage, right? As opposed to the Titans when they set up these plays where Bumper's super deep, causing you to peel back, opening up damage lanes for the rest of the team, they all can focus more easily down onto things as they simply have more damage angles, and they don't just have to shoot at a shield because they're also able to swing on you, forcing you to come back. As I started to figure this out when studying the VOD, I thought this was really interesting because on one hand, it loses the Titans a lot of fights, but on the other hand, it's what wins them the championship, right? Because despite me praising them on that fight, they end up losing this map, largely because of this over-eager pressing W too far playstyle that Bumper has. Here on Anubis, they're doing the impossible, starting to swing back a stall fight. And it's not like Bumper doesn't know how to peel. He does peel back and sustain himself sometimes. But in this situation, when you have a big man advantage, point control, your Zarya's charged up, ready to go, all Bumper has to do right now is retreat and survive and heal up. He doesn't need to go swing on enemies with infinite health with Transcendence. Just be patient. He tries to swing too much, it gets him killed rather than sustaining his shield, so his Zarya won the duel for free, and that ends up losing that fight. Another tendency was Bumper loves to threaten these aggressive angles off to the side in a way where he's just like not even protecting his team. This is why Super got so many Earthshatter stuns in this series, way more than Bumper did, because Bumper often wasn't in position to block them. He has this tendency to always want to threaten a damage angle. But as much as stuffy analysts like myself want to stick our nose up at this crazy Reinhardt playstyle, it's what works for them, right? It's as if the entirety of the Titans play as if they're assuming their Reinhardt has two hammers instead of a shield. And that's how they broke the meta, essentially. Aggression is better than defense, and no team is better at going aggro than the Titans. So much so that with their backs against the wall, with the Shock finishing Rialto, which is difficult anyway, finishing it with a minute, it looked like at this moment, the Shock was going to secure this map 7. They had tightened up, they played a clean attack, now just the easy mode defense as it usually is, and the Shock finally would be over their underperformance in tight situations issue. But it wasn't meant to be. In a moment, the Titans are able to read a couple things. Sinatra takes too much damage from range poke. He uses personal bubble, and Rascal pops armor pack onto him. So now Sinatra, with more health, but his bubble on cooldown, looks to take an aggressive angle to deal more damage as he typically does. But Titans make the shot call, no, we're going after him. W in super deep because they have no burst heal. Once you see the armor pack and bubble are down, that's when you know it's time to collapse. So despite me criticizing Bumper for sometimes not reading his own cooldowns to be able to sustain his own life, I think it's been said that Bumper's a key caller in the team, and for all we know, he's the one who read those cooldowns and called for the team to go on a hard W press deep into the enemy team's formation, where normally the attacking team is way more passive, right? You see attacks get just gummed up and really difficult to exit that choke, but Titans, when reading they have a resource advantage, are the best at going aggressive. You don't have your best tools that give you an extra life, well, we're gonna collapse onto you, focus fire, and the crazy thing is, it may have been that one mistake on the first defense when it should be easy to hold that caused the rest of this chaos thoughts to emit, because it gave Titans an ult advantage to throw around. They could trade out a lot of ultimates and still be on top and keep their foot on the gas pedal where we know they're the most comfortable. Ult advantage pressed, snowball rolling through, and history was made. That Vancouver pressed on to make a record-breaking attack time on Rialto, a map that's difficult to finish. And remember, it was the San Fransisco Shock in the regular season that was lapping teams, setting new records for how fast maps have been completed. And going into map 7, after so often your aggression was getting punished in this series, and for a good part of it, it looked like the Shock were going to win. I can't lie. They looked to have the momentum, like they had Bumper figured out. Like if they just kept playing stable enough, they'd be fine. In response, the Titans don't cower to that. They keep with this overly aggressive playstyle. I mean, here in overtime, for almost no reason at all, they try this same exact strategy, forcing a fight onto the other side of cart into the choke. Of course this was going to fail, but who cares? It's the Titans. They're going to push you on the back foot all the time, and that's what's crazy about this team. They go pedal to the metal no matter what. And yeah, sometimes it fails miserably, but they're so good at doing it that they'll eventually win enough fights to make you afraid of engaging, and they just go, 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 go. So that's the incredible thing about the Titans in this 3-3 meta. They are by far the most entertaining GOATS team to watch in my opinion, and it's this playstyle that puts a ton of risk into some of their maps and series, but it's also the one that they can pull up to turn up to 11 when they need it, when it matters most, to clobber any team who's trying to play defensive. And seriously, it was a sight to behold. As much as I want GOATS meta to go away, this was one heck of a grand final, and I hope this video helped you gain a bigger appreciation for what the Titans have accomplished this stage, all wrapped up in this wacky playstyle Bumper brings to the fold. The only tanks that I think are even comparable are like Fraggy and maybe Reinforced before him, that were willing to take such outrageous risks, yet somehow seemingly always make it work. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, and you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.